Everybody's reaching for the stars. No matter how far apart we are, when the world is up against you now, yeah, we're gonna make it through somehow. Everybody's reaching for the stars. We fly, ready to rise up in the air. We climb over the moon, we're getting So tell me, brother, can we make it through the dark? Let's try to be there for one another, though the road seems very far. When the world just falls apart, we are fearless, we are lightning, breaking through the dark. We are fearless, we keep shining, let love be the spark. Look for the clear skies, it's getting better. Just believe it in your heart. Let's try to hold on, it's now or never. We can make a brand new start. When the world just falls apart, we are fearless, we are lightning, breaking through the dark. We are fearless, we keep shining, let love be the spark, 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 let love be the spark. We are fearless, we are lightning, breaking through the dark. We are fearless, we keep shining, let love be the spark, 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 let love be the
I remember the time you said, could things be harder? Said nothing. Heard from a friend that I hadn't spoken to in a couple of years or so. It would be alright as long as the sun keeps poking its way on through my curtain light. But something tells me that if we keep singing our songs, before you know it, they'll be singing along. If we keep humming a tune, it won't be long before they sing it too. It won't be long before they sing it too. Look out my window and all I see
Welcome everyone to the pre-event for the 7th annual Bring the Conversation to Light virtual event benefiting the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation right here in the great city of Cowtown, Fort Worth, Texas. My name is Carlo Capua. I am so excited to be here with you today. This is a pre-event welcome, so thank you to all of you for joining early to get a little sneak peek to the event that we're going to have. We'll even give you a little behind-the-scenes preview. So, looking at our Zoom monitor, I see, wow, who do we have online? I see Ann Williams, hello Ann, and Candace Amori, Leanne Embry, Brad Nowlin, Tracy Rector, Edwin Harris, Debbie Sledge. We've got 77 of you online watching right now at this very moment on Zoom, and a good 24 on Facebook. So thanks to all of you for being a part of this wonderful program and incredible organization. So first, for all of you on Zoom, we'd love to see you to turn on your camera. Even though this is virtual, it's an opportunity for us to stay connected. And this is a very important moment, so feel free to come off of your stop video. We'd love to see your beautiful, smiling faces. Also, we invite you to use the chat feature to show your support. You can honor a loved one and encourage others. So to practice using the chat, we'd love to know where you're from. So if you're on Zoom, feel free to, you can change your name, add your name and maybe a title of where you're tuning in from, or just post it in the chat and I might give you a shout out. If you're on Facebook, I see a bunch of you on there. There's Lisa that just posted and Mark Ferguson. Tuning in from Facebook, feel free to post in the comments. This is engaging. We want to be talking to you, recognizing you, thanking all of you for taking your time today to benefit this wonderful organization. So folks, today we'll be talking about suicide and mental health, both of which are very difficult conversations to have, and they know no boundaries. I mean, think about it. They don't know state lines, religion, race, ethnicity, language, or political party. So knowing there are people from all around the country and around the world on the call today talking about this very important subject reminds us that we are not alone. But folks, the sad truth is there are some people who feel very alone, and this is exactly why we need to bring this conversation to light. Because, when you're not feeling well, when you're depressed, it can be very hard to tell someone else that you're feeling down or maybe even having dark thoughts. But telling someone is the first step to asking for help. And what we'll learn later from our keynote speaker, Terry Bentley Hill, she's phenomenal, that we need to hashtag stop minding your own business. So stay tuned for a very empowering and powerful message that Ms. Hill will bring to us. So for all of you watching, here's a question. Think about this. If someone told you they were deeply depressed, or maybe they felt hopeless, or even maybe that they were considering suicide, what would you say? What would you do? In about an hour, we'll have a very special training to help you answer these questions. We call it QPR, Suicide Prevention Training. The Q stands for question, the P stands for persuade, and the R stands for refer. And these are 3 simple steps anyone can learn to help save a life from suicide. So folks, if you have time, stick around after the event for this special QPR training. That's question, persuade, refer, and that'll start at 1 p.m. sharp Central Time right after today's program. Also, we will have a special moment during today's program where we will ask all of you to literally shine a light on mental health. So folks, as we're waiting on Facebook or Zoom, we're waiting for the official start, grab a flashlight or maybe a candle, or tell you what, something that all of you have handy, maybe your phone, where you can simply go to your flashlight and you can use the flashlight on our phones, because we'll have a special moment where we literally shine a light on mental health and bring the conversation to light today, all together. We're going to start in about 10 minutes as I have my father moment and keep my flashlight on. We're going to start in about 10 minutes at about 11:55 or so. And as we're waiting to start, I'd like to give a big shout out to our Hope Squad. You can see I'm wearing my button. Our Hope Squad members joining us today from all around North Texas. And Hope Squad, essentially, they're considered the eyes and the ears of your schools. These are composed of brave students who are trained to watch for at-risk students, to provide them friendship, identify warning signs, and seek help from adults. So these Hope Squad members are empowered to seek help and save a life. And we want to thank all of our Hope Squad members and wonderful advisors in attendance. So folks, if you're on Zoom or if you're on Facebook, if you hear your school or your district, give us a shout out, either a thumbs up on our Zoom call or post in the chat or Facebook comments if you hear your school or school district so we can salute your efforts. Anybody out there in the Arlington ISD, Birdville, Carroll, Fort Worth, we've got Grapevine, Colleyville, Keller, Mansfield, Weatherford, White Settlement. Oh, I see Christy. Okay, so Noreen and Christy both are shout out from Carroll. How about Westlake Academy? Anybody out there from Westlake Academy? We've also got Uplift Ascend. I see Bridget's joining us from Keller ISD, and Valerie from GCISD is in the house, she says. Anyone from St. Rita Catholic School out there? We really appreciate the support of all these independent school districts and St. Rita's. And a special shout out to Dr. Hudnell. Dr. Hudnell, thank you so much for all of your efforts and your volunteer spirit in joining us. We know that you've been a very essential champion and a great testament from the Hope Squad. And thank you very much for being here. So thanks to all of our Hope Squad folks. I see Howard Rosenthal from South Lake. Much love and caring to our dear friends, the Harrises. We see a lot of other folks. Frostbank, Lisa Gillick from Fort Worth. I see David and Sandy Dixon. Thank you from the Hope Squad. And we really are so excited to have everyone here. So today, as we shine a light on mental health, depression, and suicide, and ask all of you, our collective village, to help us. And there are two ways you can help. Number one, if you know someone right now struggling with mental health, invite them to watch. You can send them the Facebook Live link. Anyone can join. You don't have to have a Facebook account to tune in and watch. And we'll get started officially in just a few minutes. So you've got a few moments. If there's someone you know who might benefit from hearing a message of hope, please share this link with them to watch on Facebook. I'll ask our tech crew to insert the actual name of the page in the Zoom chat, if you would. In the Zoom chat, if you'll insert the name of the Facebook link. That way, anybody, you don't have to have a Zoom account. You can go right to this Facebook page, tune in, and catch this whole program. Because as is said here at the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation, while it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a community to save one. I love that quote. So if there's someone you know who has a friend or a family member who is struggling with depression or mental health or maybe thoughts of suicide, please invite them to this program. During the pandemic, we're all cooped up in our homes. We're seeing depression and suicides spike. Another way you can help is to give. So right now we're going to paste the link in the Zoom chat and the Facebook comment section. Gives you a direct link to donate online. You can click that link. It'll open up a new menu, so you can fill out your credit card information later. Even after the broadcast, you can fill it out. We'll take donations all day today until midnight. But the goal for this 1 hour, folks, is bold. It's to raise Christy's giving me the thumbs up, to raise $150,000. So 3 ways to give. Number 1, you can text. You can see on the screen here, you can text to give from your phone at 833-307-0773. You can donate online. We'll post a direct link in the chat right now, both in Zoom and Facebook. And we'll also post the mailing address right now in both chats if you'd like to send a check via snail mail. Well, folks, we'll take your money any way we can get it. It's for a great cause. We're not shy. I am shameless when it comes to asking for money for this great organization. So again, if you're, feel free to turn your video on at Zoom. We'd love to see you. Feel free to type the chat in the comments. I'm going to see how we're doing here. I see Crowley's in the house. We've got David and Sandy Dixon. Marie Salazar, hello from Communities and Schools in Hidalgo County. This is awesome. So I'm going to ask our friends in the back to help us put up a quick poll on Zoom. We're going, and our friends on Facebook to join us. So in just a moment in Zoom, you should see a poll that comes up that asks where you're from. Okay, we'll go with that poll. Your answers are Tarrant County, somewhere else in Texas, somewhere in the USA, or international. So we'll give you just a few moments to answer that. If you're in Facebook, put it in the chat. If you're on Zoom, put it in the chat. We'll close that poll in 3, 2, 1. All right, we're not going to show you the results yet. We're going to make you wait and build the drama here. And we'll reveal those results in just a second. So remember, folks, we've got people from all around. Depression and suicide, it's not confined to any one religion, race, ethnicity, political party, and we want to reach as many people as possible as we can. So, let's go ahead and show how many people are, let's go ahead and, Bill, let's run the results of that poll so we can see exactly who we have on the call. You can see we've got 74% are Tarrant County, 15% somewhere in Texas, 10% somewhere in the USA. We have almost every state had pre-registered. And then we've got one person international. So thank you to whoever you are dialing in from overseas. We really appreciate it. I saw we had people registered from Puerto Rico, Israel, India, and Hawaii, and Canada. Thank you. Oh, Canada. Thank you so much for being here. So in just a moment, just now, we're going to roll a pre-show video. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Everybody's reaching for the stars. No matter how far apart we are. When the world is up against you now, yeah, we're gonna make it through somehow. Everybody's reaching for the stars. We fly, ready to rise up in the you
welcome everyone officially to the 7th annual Bring the Conversation to Light virtual event brought to you by the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation. My name is Carlo Capio. I'm coming to you live from our studio here at Red Productions in the great city of Fort Worth, Texas. Today we shine a light on mental health, depression, and suicide. And in the next 65 minutes, we hope to accomplish 3 things. Number 1, to better understand the challenges we face in our community on the topics of mental health, depression, and suicide. Number 2, to better equip ourselves and others to support those struggling with mental health. And number 3, of course, very important, to raise funds to support the outstanding work of the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation. And folks, right before we came on, I got word we got our first text to give donation. So thank you to the mystery donor there. We also got a generous gift from the Foles and Logan family. So Foles and Logan family, thank you so much for your gift. We really appreciate it. Folks, we understand there is a stigma that surrounds just the words and the topics of suicide and depression. And it can be really uncomfortable to bring up these topics with friends or family. But talking about it brings the conversation out in the open and could save a life. As the late Congressman John Lewis said, if not us, then who? And if not now, then when? The time is now, folks, to bring this conversation to light, because every day in this country, 132 people die by suicide. We've seen a 30% increase in suicide since 1999 nationally. And right here at home, in Tarrant County, since 1999, we've seen a 55% increase in suicide. The numbers, folks, they're going in the wrong way, and we need to take action now. Now, normally we'd be gathered in person in a large convention center, sitting at our tables with our table captains, enjoying a delicious box lunch as we've done the past 6 years. But we've had to pivot, like many of you out there, to ensure this conversation doesn't end. So if you're on Zoom, we'd love to see your face. Feel free to turn on your video, post in the chat your comments and thoughts. If you're on Facebook, feel free to post messages of hope in the comments there, and I may even give you a shout out. I see Ensemble Co-working, great co-working space, says hello to everybody. We also see Carla Beard, Sherry Harsel, Lisa Goodwin, MD Sojib Khan. Thank you so much for all of your kind comments. One of the positives of doing a virtual event is we can cast a really wide net. Some of the people that I mentioned probably have never attended to this in person or maybe somewhere far away. So if this is the first time you've attended this Bring the Conversation to Light event, we extend our sincerest welcome to all of you. In fact, we did a poll just a few minutes ago, and we saw people were tuning in from almost every state in the U.S. We even have some folks from India, China, Israel, Puerto Rico, and Hawaii. So we're so happy you're with us wherever you might be at this very moment. Not bad for the person in Hawaii, so thanks for being here from the beach. Speaking of our audience, we have a number of elected officials joining us today that we'd like to extend our sincere welcome and thank you for the support of Mayor Betsy Price of the city of Fort Worth, Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Shingleton, also with the city of Fort Worth, Mayor David Cook of Mansfield, Mayor Oscar Trevino from North Richland Hills, Mayor Laura Hill from Southlake, Mayor Laura Wheat from Westlake. I wonder if they get confused sometimes. Mayor Kelly Thompson from the town of Westover Hills, Councilmember Ann Zeta, District 9 representative for the city of Fort Worth. We also have 6 superintendents of school districts all across North Texas. This event wouldn't be possible without your support. I'm just now seeing we've got Noreen, thank you for your donation. We've got someone tuning in from the Netherlands. Thank you so much for being here. And the U.S. Virgin Islands. Wow, that's we really appreciate you tuning in. As you know, suicide, depression, mental health knows no boundaries. This is something that we can all join arms together, regardless of where you are in the world, to support this great organization. We also want to thank our sponsors. We have our presenting sponsor, Alacaina Foundation. Thank you so much for being the presenting sponsor for today. We also have trainer-level sponsors, Alliance Operating Services, the Connerly Family Fund of the North Texas Community Foundation, our friends there. Thank you to Empire Roofing, to Fiserv, to Office Equity Solutions, and Republic title. Thank you to all of our sponsors, and a big shout out to the 63 virtual table captains. We couldn't do this without you. You recruited people to fill your table. We've moved to a virtual event, and we just really appreciate your commitment here because, folks, it takes a village of sponsors, volunteers, and table captains to make this happen. Now, we are all here today because of a young lady named Jordan. Jordan was a remarkable woman and one of those people that you never thought would have thought about struggling with her mental health. She was valedictorian at Richland High School and Birdville ISD. Jordan was a student athlete, a National Merit Scholar. She got a scholarship to the University of Michigan, and it was in her senior year she began struggling with her mental health. She was diagnosed with severe depression, and only 4 months later took her life. So to honor Jordan and to all those who have lost a loved one to suicide, Jordan's parents, Tom and Ellen Harris, who you'll meet in just a few minutes, started the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation with the mission to eradicate suicide in 4 ways: funding depression research, creating awareness through education, erasing the stigma, and providing hope to those who are struggling in silence. So it is with that mission and in the spirit of the Harris's mission and 4-pronged mission that we are all here today. So in order to eradicate suicide, folks, we really need your help. Our goal today is, we'll be honest, it's a very bold goal. It's $150,000 in this hour. You'll hear from Executive Director Christina Judge in just a few moments about the programs we've done in the past year, and Ellen Harris will give you details on exactly where your donation goes and precisely how it will help. In fact, I'm hearing that since we began, we're already up to $29,000 from either the text to give or the online donation. So thank you so much. If you've just joined us, then we're going to put in the chat box and the Facebook Live comment section a clickable link to help us reach today's goal. So if you click on that link, folks, it'll open up a new window that you can use to donate, or you can just come back to that page after the broadcast. You can fill in your credit card information at your convenience, and you'll know that your donation goes to a great cause. Let's see how much we can raise in this 1 hour. So before we go to our mission moment, we want do another poll for the audience. Have you lost someone to suicide? You should see it pop up on your screen. You can answer yes or no. If you're on Facebook and you have lost someone to suicide, you can simply type yes in the comments section. Because every day, 134 people in the USA die by suicide. And struggles with mental health happen in our own cities, our neighborhoods, our backyards, our own schools. And by shining a light on the issue today, we can work together to bring hope to those who feel hopeless. Remember, it takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a community to save one. You are part of that community. We'll bring you the results in just a moment. And now I'd like to ask everyone to grab your phone, okay? Your phone right here. You can turn on your flashlights, and what we're going to do is whether you're watching on Zoom or Facebook, let's take a moment to honor the theme and literally bring the conversation to light. We've asked everyone to bring their own light, whether it's a candle or an electronic candle or simply your smartphone. We can shine this light together in solidarity for those who we've lost to suicide, to be a beacon of hope for all those who are struggling in the darkness. And so at this time, we'd invite anyone with a light to join us in letting our light shine. We're going to turn the event to gallery view, and you can see, there's 465 of you on Zoom right now, and almost 100 live on Facebook. You can see the power of our collective shared light.
My last daughter, my baby, she was 12 years old. She had already had a really rough go of it with her birth father, and he had been physically and emotionally abusive.
I led my 4 teenagers and myself away from domestic abuse. We left their friends, their support group, and came back to what was considered my hometown, but a strange place for them.
When I was 13, my mother tried to commit suicide. You know, that was quite traumatic for me and my brothers.
And it took a turn for the worse when my best friend, Gabe, died by suicide in September of 2015.
She secretly started cutting. In her mind, what she wanted was to just end it all.
And then it was not answering my phone calls and not answering my text messages. And I wondered, is he alive?
I never had the desire to get close with anyone. I separated and isolated myself from family and friends. I self-medicated for so many years.
June 3rd, 2016, I tried to take my life. The depression got so bad, I just didn't want to be here.
Why didn't you come and tell us? We would be here to support you and love you through whatever you need.
The worst part for me was the night panics of, oh, if I just said this, if I had just told him that, he'd still be here.
By then, I had taken all the pills, so I had enough to kill 4 people. I had 124 pills, and I took them all.
All broke down and started crying, and then we got on, what's the next thing we need to do here? You need to get help. We need to get help as a family. Let's do this together.
I did need help. Compounding stress and adverse childhood experiences can lead anyone to a path where they feel depressed and anxious, where they feel suicidal and like there's no hope.
We all face certain crises that are devastating to us. And these skills that we are learning through the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation will equip all of us to handle these better.
One great way to get the stigma out of suicide. It's important for us to do everything we can do in this world, and this is the organization that I was brought to.
It brings a beacon of hope to other people. It brings the conversation to light. It gives us the ability to say, there's a community for this. There's a community of people that can help you.
And I feel like what's happening with the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation is they are giving us answers. They are equipping us. And not only that, they're also then investing in research.
I went to see the first QPR alone, and I found the valuable information priceless. I was so just mesmerized by Christy and her presentation that the second time I brought back my husband, who is a first responder. He listened, and I think that he was pretty amazed at what he didn't really even know.
You're not alone in this journey, and you never will be, because there are thousands and thousands of people out there who've felt those feelings. And there are people that can relate and can help you process the trauma, the stress, the experiences that you're going through.
Just that one life skill that they learned through Hope Squad. If Hope Squad was all Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation did, it would be, I'd be standing here every bit as fired up as I am with everything else that they do.
I don't think we have the excuse that, say, my parents had, because no one talked about it, you know. We know better. So by knowing better, then we have to do better. And for me, doing better is talking about it. And people say, well, it's courageous to do it. I don't see it that way at all. I mean, it's what we do. I think that's what we're supposed to do, to help each other.
Thank you all for taking the time from your day to be here with us. We're thrilled to have the chance to do this event virtually, and we're excited to return to our regular format next year if that's possible. I'm pleased to be talking about the impact the Foundation's programs have had in our wonderful community and beyond. As many of you know, when COVID emerged in March, we had to transition to virtual services, which we were fortunately able to do quickly. I'd like to recognize our volunteers, staff, and board for this successful transition. Our Hope Squad program has had significant impact in our community. Just 3 years ago, we had a little more than a dozen schools using this peer-to-peer suicide prevention program. We now have 89 schools in 9 districts with 81,535 students able to access a Hope Squad. There are currently 1,500 Hope Squad student members, ages 9 to 18, who've been elected by their classmates. These students receive special training to help peers who may be suicidal. In the last academic year, 484 students struggling with suicidal thoughts or a mental health crisis were referred for help at our Hope Squad schools. If you're an educator and you'd like to bring this program to your school, I've just given you 484 precious reasons why you should consider it. Hope Squad schools have also received more than $300,000 from the foundation over the past 4 years. Before I move on, I'd like to thank all the students, parents, school staff, administrators, and superintendents who are committed to the success of Hope Squads in their schools. QPR training also continues to be a source of impact, with our staff and volunteers on track to provide 4,500 people with this suicide prevention training. QPR stands for Question, Persuade, Refer, the 3 steps needed to help someone who is suicidal. These free trainings have engaged people from all over the country in their new virtual format. Our Train the Trainer program, called Unite for Light, impacts others via partnerships with community agencies and academic institutions. We have provided 16 partners with free QPR suicide prevention, training support, and materials. Over the past 5 years, we've provided financial impact via $392,000 in awards for depression research funding. This year, we supported JPS Behavioral Health for the continuation of its suicide prevention predictive analytics project, and the TCU UNT Health Science Center Medical School to support a program related to the mental health of its medical students. All of these accomplishments are made possible by you. Without your ongoing support, we would not be able to provide these life-saving programs. Every dollar means we can serve more children through a Hope Squad, offer a training to a first responder, or help fund groundbreaking research that will change the way we treat mental health. If you have time, please stay after the event. Our program director, Christy Wiley, will be doing a QPR suicide prevention training. Thank you again, and please enjoy the rest of the program.
At this very different and virtual luncheon event. Like many nonprofit organizations, we labored over our decision to have or not to have our annual luncheon. But in the end, we felt it important to, with your help, continue our advocacy, education, and awareness efforts related to suicide, and especially youth suicide. We have over 900 people registered for today's virtual event. An incredible turnout considering today's challenges. It often seems that we are inundated with nothing but news about problems our country faces, be it the virus, social unrest, or our divisive politics. I find myself often wondering if there isn't a news or a media business model that would focus more on the good things happening around us. The onslaught of this virus has certainly heightened our challenges in dealing with the overall mental well-being of adults and children globally. When you consider the environment in our schools, at home, and in the workplace, every age group and demographic has been pushed into some form of isolation. We are social animals. We need to be with other people. We need to collaborate in person with others at work. Our children need to learn social and interpersonal skills in our schools. We need to practice our faith with others. When these things are absent, it can easily result in stress, loneliness, and depression. But we're not here today to solve all of our nation's problems. but rather to bring the mental health conversation to light and eliminate any stigma related to our efforts to support the people most in need. You heard from Christina earlier about the work the foundation has been busy with, despite the barriers created by COVID-19. I'm incredibly proud of our staff, our board, and all those volunteers who support our efforts. And I want you to know that the foundation team is doing everything they can to mitigate the challenges we face today. Our family's path since we lost Jordan Elizabeth has not been an easy one. But over time, we have gathered strength from each other and from a very close group of friends. Ellen and I have always admired the way Jordan's brother and sister have rebounded from their loss, as both are now very independent, busy with their families and their careers, and active members of the Foundation's board. Their strength, courage, and resilience will carry them a long way as they continue their life's journey. Jordan and her little sister had a very special bond that most siblings would be envious of. I was always amazed at how close they were with each other. Seldom did I ever hear them argue. More often, I would find them giggling about some absurd story or thought they were sharing with each other. You all might remember the old Nike commercial, "Be like Mike," suggesting you could be a basketball player like Michael Jordan if you wore his shoes. In certain ways, Alicia wanted to be like Jordan. With that notion in mind, let me introduce Alicia Thornton Harris, who will give you her perspective on what it was like to lose her sister Jordan to suicide. Thank you. Alicia?
Thank you for that intro, Dad. As my dad mentioned, my name is Alicia Harris, and I am Jordan's younger sister. Our brother Matt gave a speech at last year's luncheon. He did such a fabulous job that I don't think I stopped hearing, "Wasn't Matt's speech incredible?" for at least 2 weeks after that. So I wanted to say thank you, Matt, for setting that incredibly high standard for me. This idea of standard setting does a pretty good job of summing up what it was like growing up as the youngest Harris sibling. It feels like I've spent my whole life living up to the standards set by my big brother and sister. Throughout grade school, I wasn't ever really called by my name, Alicia, but rather Jordan Harris's little sister, or, "Hey, you're related to Matt, right?" But in all seriousness, I could not have asked for better role models. Matt was the smart, talented captain of the football team, and Jordan, well, I wanted to be everything she was. Intelligent, funny, beautiful, successful, kind, popular, just to name a few. Jordan played basketball and volleyball in school, so I played basketball and volleyball. She was on the school spirit squad, and I was too. She got her nose pierced, I got my nose pierced. She wanted to travel the world, and I still do. Anywhere she was at a big family gathering, I would be right next to her, which I know she absolutely loved. She had this infectious lust for life and for people, and had a special way of making everyone she encountered feel like their best selves. Jordan had the brightest future ahead of her, and I knew, even at a young age, that she would go on to do amazing things in this world. One day shortly after Jordan returned to Ann Arbor for her final semester at the University of Michigan, my dad called me to tell me that she had been admitted to the hospital. She had been having these really dark thoughts, and her roommate, Stephanie, had convinced her to check herself in so she could get help. I was so confused, as I didn't have the slightest inkling that she was feeling sad or overwhelmed, much less depressed. The whole concept of being depressed was something that was so foreign to me at the time. There had been no warning signs. She did her absolute best at hiding these feelings from everyone. Only 2 months later, Jordan took her own life. She was 22 years old. I was 18. As long as I live, I will remember the day I found out Jordan died as if it was yesterday. I was in my second semester of my freshman year at UT Austin. After my morning classes, Matt, who was also at UT, came to my dorm to tell me what happened. I remember my dad's voice breaking over the phone as he attempted to calm me down. I remember the 45-minute flight from Austin to DFW feeling like 4 hours. I remember the house full of people that were there when I arrived home and the conversations with my loved ones, each of us trying to make sense of what had happened. My life has not been the same since. I lost my big sister, my best friend, and the most influential person in my life. I kept thinking, how could someone who was so full of life be so depressed that she truly believed the only solution was to end her own life? How did I not see how bad it was? If Jordan could succumb to this terrible depression, what would my own future look like? Not only did Jordan's suicide turn my world upside down, but it affected our entire community. When she died, the number of messages, phone calls, and social media posts that followed was almost overwhelming. They were a testament to the incredible impact Jordan had on people. Her death was a shock to so many. It became a wake-up call for our community to take mental illness more seriously. Something had to be done. And thankfully, something has been done. My parents, Tom and Ellen Harris, founded the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation back in 2014. Over these past 6 years, I've been lucky enough to witness the impact this foundation has had on the Dallas-Fort Worth community, and Tarrant County in particular. You heard from Christina earlier about the incredible strides we have made over the years, not to mention the number of people that have been touched by the important work the foundation is doing. As indicated by Christina's statistics, a primary goal of this foundation has been to normalize conversations among people, particularly young people, about mental health, to let them know it's okay to not be okay, and that it is so important to talk about it. I still miss Jordan every day, and I wish more than anything that I could pick up the phone and call her just to talk about our days. We were finally getting to a point in our lives where I wasn't the annoying little sister anymore. We were becoming peers, and even better, best friends. This is one of the hardest parts about losing her when I did. If there is such thing as a silver lining for me, Jordan's death has taught me so much about life and its challenges. It's taught me how to put things into perspective, how to not sweat the small stuff. It's taught me how to be resilient, how to push through the bad days, because I've already experienced some of the worst pains a person can feel. When I was laid off from my job back in March because of COVID, I knew I could break through my own feelings of sadness or depression and find the resources I needed to get past it. And throughout the years, all of us have thankfully turned the tragedy of losing Jordan into something bigger than ourselves through sharing her story and growing the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation's work in the community. I am so honored and proud to be a part of such an amazing organization. I would like to personally thank everyone who has played a part in supporting this foundation, no matter how big or small. I also wanted to thank many of the same people watching today who have been there for me and my family since the moment we lost Jordan. You are the people who continue to lift us up 8 years later. And to my parents, Tom and Ellen, the co-founders of the foundation, you inspire me. I'm honored to call you my role models and the role models for many in this community. You both have somehow found a way to turn your personal tragedy into such a powerful force of good, literally saving countless lives. We are living in a time of immense uncertainty. The combination of a global pandemic, racial injustices, political divisiveness, and an economic crisis has had an incredibly negative impact on everyone's state of mind. According to a major recent study conducted at Boston University, for example, cases of depression among adults in the US have tripled since the start of the COVID pandemic. All these factors just amplify more than ever the need for our foundation services. And finally, whether you are at home, at work, or at school, and you are feeling isolated in these extremely difficult times, please know that you are not alone in any of this. Thank you for taking the time to tune in today. We are grateful for any kind of support you can give the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation. It will make an impact far greater than you can ever know. Thank you, and stay safe.
Alicia, thank you so much for those brave words. We know that Jordan would be immensely proud of you And I'm going to go to some of the Zoom comments that I've seen really pour in support of Alicia. We've got from Jake Yarborough says, "You're such an inspiration. Thank you for channeling your energies into solutions." We've got Lisa Doherty, "The Harris family is so loved by all of us." Adam Grossman says, "Lishy rocks." Harriet Harrell said, "Thank you to the Harris family for the strong commitment to make positive impact." And Tracy Rector, Aaron Buck, Lisa's iPad all said, "Thank you for the courage you have to stand up for us today." And folks, we know that Alicia is not alone, because at the beginning of the program, we put up a poll and asked if you'd lost someone to suicide. Well, we saw that 61% of you, and we can share the results if we can, Bill, 61% responded yes. And so we know that we're not alone. You know, to tackle mental health, depression, and suicide head on, we need your help, folks. We'll post a link. Actually, let's post a link right now in the chat. It will take you directly to the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation webpage. You know, our goal is $150,000, and right now our current fundraising goal is $52,500. We're 1/3 of the way there. If you're thinking about making a donation, folks, do it now, please, because your donation will inspire other people to donate. I also want to go to some of the comments we got from J.R. Labby at JPS Health Network. Wants to thank everyone at the foundation what they're doing. Thank you, J.R., for your kind comments. We also had George King Jr. posted a beautiful tribute to some of his family members that have struggled with mental health and depression. So thank you, George, for posting that. We also had Nate Guyton, I saw from the TCU Chancellor's Office, posted messages of support. So thank you, Nate, and thank you, Chancellor Boschini and TCU for all the support that you give this organization. We've also got Smithfield Elementary School. Thank you for being here. A big shout out to Susan E. Foster for being the honorary chair of today's event. And she volunteers and gives in memory of her son, Marshall. So thank you, Susan, for everything that you give. And one other group I'd like to point out is what we call our Unite for Light partners. Thank you to all of you with the United Way, Leah King and team. You run such a fantastic organization. Thank you for your support. We've got Pathfinders, Communities and Schools, MHMR of Tarrant County, and 22 Kill. Thank you to all of you for your support. It really, folks, it takes a village. So don't wait. Please donate. We need your funds to help tackle this problem that is pervasive, not just in our community, not just in our country, but around the world. And I've got a little bit of breaking news for you I'm hearing in the earpiece I'm not wearing. Ellen and Tom Harris, the co-founders of the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation and Jordan's parents, they're issuing an exciting challenge for all you 63 table captains. So table captains, pay attention. And folks at tables, pay attention. Table captains, if all 10 of your guests at your virtual table make a donation, big or small, anywhere in between, Ellen and Tom will donate an additional $100. So 63 table captains times $100 is a lot of money, and no amount is too small or large, and recurring monthly gifts are eligible, really any kind of gift that we give. Let's do it now. Click on that link. Let's donate. Let's lead by example and make your gift and encourage your other guests to give. We'll watch our light shine brighter than we ever could have expected. Well, folks, it's now my honor to introduce today's keynote speaker, and I heard her in rehearsal yesterday. She is phenomenal. Her name is Terry Bentley Hill. She is a nationally recognized mental health advocate and criminal defense attorney in Dallas, Texas. Ms. Hill holds a bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Texas at Austin and a Doctor of Jurisprudence degree from Texas A&M University School of Law. Hill's focus on mental health issues occurred after losing both her first husband and her 14-year-old daughter to suicide. It is her mission to help others suffering from mental health diseases by sharing her story of pain and healing. Folks, please help me give a great big virtual welcome to today's speaker, Terry Bentley Hill.
Carlo, thank you so much. I'm humbled every time I hear that, mainly because I am here talking to you as a guest of Tom and Ellen Harris, and I'm humbled because this is one of the best events you will ever attend on this topic. And I suggest to you today that this is the most important information you're going to get today, or tomorrow, or this week, or forever. This is a topic that we do need to talk about. And I know, because as Carlos said, I'm the survivor. I am a survivor of suicide. Not once and not twice, but twice. And I'm also a survivor with a capital S. And what that means is I am one of those who has been left behind. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what we can do with more information, like QPR, that the foundation supplies to anybody who wants to know how to save a life. Now, normally, when a person speaks at the Harris Foundation, they are in a humongous, cavernous room with hundreds and hundreds of people sitting out there listening to the speaker, listening to Christina Judge, listening to Tom and Ellen, listening to Matt, to Alicia, everybody. But really, it is just a huge stage and the message that we can present. So today is different. And see, there's an island of opportunity in every difficulty. And so thank goodness for Zoom. Thank goodness for Facebook Live, because I can have lunch with you. I can stand here today, and I can be welcomed into your home, and I can have an intimate conversation with you about a very difficult topic. And so I get to have lunch now with people in Israel, in England, and all over this country. And so I'm going to share part of my story. I'm going to share things that people ask me all the time as a survivor of suicide. And I'm going to give a message of hope from what I have learned from my own experience. So if I were sitting across the table from a friend, which you are today, many friends have asked me in the past, Terry, you are the survivor of suicide. What is that like? And what have you learned as a result of that? And if you could leave one message for us today, what would that be? I'm going to give you some really good news. First of all, and I'm going to get to this a little bit more later. But the really good news today is that suicide is the number one most preventable death there is. Preventable death. So that's the good news. But I want to start off by saying, as a survivor, I saw on Facebook Live and on Zoom the number of people who are watching who have experienced suicide in their own life. So I'm talking to a bunch of survivors. And I want you to know, my heart's with you. I know how painful this is. I want to honor that pain. I want to honor you as a survivor. And I want to acknowledge you. And I want people to know how difficult it is to survive suicide. Because suicide is the most complicated death to grieve. Unlike a natural death from a different kind of illness that is more acceptable, or from a death from a car accident, or death from even murder. I'm a criminal defense attorney, right? So I see a lot of different things, and I deal with a lot of people who have experienced terrible things. But nothing is more complicated than living as a survivor of suicide, because it becomes very personal. It feels personal. It's complicated because I feel like, what should I have done? What could I have done? Why did this happen? Because see, our brain doesn't wrap around this idea of someone dying by suicide. So we have to come up with a reason why. We have to figure it out. And the person, usually we can project our anger on other death situations. For example, if someone dies in a car accident, we can be mad at the slick roads. Someone dies of cancer, we can be mad at cancer. But if someone dies of suicide, there are only two people we can be angry at, and that's either the person who has died or ourselves. And we're not going to be mean to the person who's gone. So we tend to beat ourselves up. Why didn't I answer that text message? Why didn't I answer the phone? If I had, maybe this never would have happened. There are so many whys that we ask, why? And what I have learned through this process is the only person who can answer that why is gone. So I've learned I had to give up the whys. I had to let go of the whys and just realize that many people who die by suicide are suffering from a medical condition or a mental health disorder, and I can't answer that why, just like I can't save or understand why someone might die from cancer. So I had to let go of that. It was not a judgment, and it's not a judgment on them, and it's not a judgment on me. And what I also learned through this process is we don't know what we don't know. And we do the best we can, but when we learn more, we do better. And what I mean by that is 25 years ago, I was married to an elected official in the state of Texas. And he struggled with a substance use disorder called alcoholism. And he also had undiagnosed depression. And there were things that he said to me that if I had spoken the language of depression, because there's a language of depression, but I didn't understand the language of depression at that time because I didn't know what I didn't know. And oftentimes when you suffer from a depression or a mental health condition, you don't know you have it until you don't have it. So oftentimes a person who is experiencing that doesn't even know that what is going on with them. They may medicate that condition with some other coping skill, whether that be drinking too much. And by the way, with COVID, alcohol sales are up 54%. So people are coping with their anxiety with alcohol and other negative coping skills. So what I had to learn was the language of depression. For example, what do I mean? Well, my husband telegraphed through our entire marriage that he was experiencing suicide ideation. For example, he was a district attorney, and I'll never forget this. He was trying a capital murder case, a police shooting. A young man shot a police officer on Christmas night, and that is a capital case in Texas, and my husband was going for the death penalty. But instead of the death penalty, the jury came back with life in prison. And my husband was so devastated by that. He felt like he had let the officer down. He felt like he had let the widow down. He felt like he had let the community down. He felt like he had let himself down. And so he says to me, I might as well kill myself because I have let everyone down. But because my brain didn't work that way, I just thought, well, that's pretty extreme. I didn't understand the consequences of those comments. And all through our marriage, he telegraphed those messages to me. And so I missed it because I didn't know what I didn't know. 9 years later, I lost my daughter to suicide, to depression. And I want to tell you a little bit about Hallie. She was 14 years old when she died. And she told me things like, Mom, nobody likes me. I have no friends. See, what happens when a person is experiencing depression is they have cognitive distortion. They have thinking errors. Their brain starts to lie to them. And Hallie was a darling girl. You heard the stories about Jordan. Hallie was the same way. She had everything going for her. And I knew it was not true that she didn't have friends. But that's what she was saying. She was using the words that should have been a red flag. She said, nobody sits with me at the cafeteria. So by golly, I was going to go up there and prove her wrong. And I volunteered in the cafeteria, and I watched her. And of course, she had 20 friends sitting around her at the table. So I knew she was wrong. She had tons of friends. But you know what I learned? What I thought about that was irrelevant. It's what she thought. And so I had to learn those words, the all or nothing words. Everyone would be better off without me. I wish I could just go away. I think that people would be happy if I weren't around anymore. Those are words that are red flags. And then also depression shows you people's state of mind. People isolate when they're depressed. I know, because I experienced that after my first husband died by suicide. I experienced depression. I isolated. I wouldn't answer the phone. I couldn't get out of bed except for to take my kids to school. So I know how difficult it is. And so when a person's brain starts to lie to them, then oftentimes it seems easier to die than to live. So what do we do about that? Well, I'm going to tell you that I started a foundation called Stop Minding Your Own Business, because I had a conversation with a gentleman who had attempted suicide. And he told me some things I will never forget. When he was 17 years old, he jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. And when I said, what were you thinking? I am the mother of a child who died by suicide. Please tell me, what were you thinking? And this is what he said. Oftentimes when a person decides to die by suicide, they'll make a pact with themselves. If this happens today, I won't die today. Might die tomorrow, but I won't die today. The pact that he made with himself that day was, if one person asks me if I'm okay, I won't jump. And he told me how he asked his dad to take him to the city bus so he could catch the city bus to the Golden Gate Bridge. And when he hugged his dad goodbye for the last time, his dad never said, hey, Kevin, what's wrong? He gets on a city bus with people packed on either side of the aisle and sobbed all the way to the Golden Gate Bridge, and not one person asked him, are you okay? He gets to the bridge, he's getting ready to jump. A lady walks up to him, and he said, I'll never forget her as long as I live. She had this dark hair, and she had these big glasses on, and he said, she's going to ask me if I'm okay. But she didn't. She said, here's a camera. Will you take my picture? And he went, okay. So he took her picture, handed her back the camera, and he jumped. And this is what I want you to hear. I don't know if you are a teacher. I don't know if you're a student. I don't know if you're a parent. I don't know if you're contemplating suicide yourself. I don't know. It doesn't matter who you are, but this is what I want you to hear. If the minute he jumped, he regretted it. Please, God, don't let me die. And he thought the saddest thing before he hit that water was that his family would not know that he wanted to live. He wanted to take it back. When he told me that story, and he's one of 43 people to ever survive jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge and live to tell his story. When he got through telling me, I thought, oh my God, we've got to stop minding our own business. We've got to start asking the questions. Are you okay? Because we can all do that. And we have to stop minding our own business. In this country, we're taught, don't mind your own business. Don't tell me how to raise my kids. Don't tell me how to take care of my lawn. In this instance, when it comes to a person who's struggling, stop minding your own business. Ask the question, are you okay? Because when you do that, think about suicide like a balloon. Suicidal crisis is like air filling up a balloon. And when you ask the question, are you okay? It releases some of that air out of that balloon and alleviates the crisis. So I want you to know that it's okay to ask the question, are you okay? Do you have a plan? And if they do have a plan, what is your plan? Ask the question. Now, this foundation is very important, and I know they're trying to raise $150,000 today. I'm going to challenge you. We're going to raise $250,000 today, because when Hallie died, one of the things my therapist said, Terry, is Hallie just died too soon. One of these days, we're going to know how to treat this, and we're going to be able to take care of people who are suffering with suicide ideation and with depression, and that's what this foundation does. It supports research. It opens the door to speaking about this. And by the way, tell your story. There are a bunch of you survivors out there. Tell your story, because your story may be the key that unlocks someone else's prison. And I want to end with this. I always end with a little bit of hope. The day after my former husband died, a woman walked in my home and she said, Terry, you need to write a gratitude list. And I'm now the single mother of 4 little children. I said, are you kidding me? I have nothing to be grateful for. She said, well, let's think about that. She said, do you have a roof over your head? Do you have food on your table? Do you have 4 little girls who love you? Do you have a bed that you sleep in? And do you have legs that can take you from that bed to your bathroom sink? And do you have a toothbrush that you can use every single day? And I said, yeah, I do. She said, well, then it seems to me you have a whole lot to be grateful for. So every day that I pick this toothbrush up, I'm reminded I have a lot to be grateful for. And today, I'm grateful for my husband, Tom. I'm grateful for my sister who's watching. I'm grateful for my kids, Katie, Elizabeth, and Bentley. I'm grateful for Tom and Ellen Harris, and I'm grateful for this foundation. And I encourage you to give today to save a life. Not one more child, not one more death. We can stop that right now. I want to thank you. Thank you for listening to me. It means the world to me that I get the chance to share what it's been like for me, but what we can do. It's the #1 most preventable death. I want to thank you so much.
Terry, thank you so much. What a powerful testimony. So much to unpack there. You know, she talked about letting go of the whys. This is the #1 most preventable cause of death in the world. And something she said that really resonated, understanding the language of depression. And that's precisely what we do with this QPR training, is we have people understand the red flags and to hear things that may be problematic or leading to mental health, depression, or suicide. Folks, she mentioned alcohol sales are up. Well, guess what else is up during the pandemic? It's firearm sales. And those two can be a very deadly mix when someone is struggling with mental health. You know, I took part in the QPR training, and it was remarkable. You know, I learned that 2/3 of all veteran suicides involve a firearm. So what can we do to get to that $150,000 goal? Right now, we're at $82,300. If everybody on the call, we have about 1,000 people on the call. I see 485 on Zoom, but there are multiple watch parties. So if you're part of a watch party, if you'll put in the comments, who are you with? How many people are at the watch party with you? We've got about 80 on Facebook Live. If we all can donate $150, 1,000 people, that's $150,000. We will reach our goal. Stick around for QPR training. This is exactly why we need programs like this. I mean, imagine if we were able to surpass our goal and create more QPR trainings to help people understand the red flags of depression and suicide. Imagine if someone understood a red flag and heard something problematic from someone you loved and told someone and saved their life. That's worth far more than $150, folks, but please, we need your support to continue great programs like this. We want to remember, stop minding your own business. If you hear something, say something. It's very important. So we just want to remind you that this underscores the importance of bringing this conversation into the open. So please continue to use the chat and say the name. Feel free to put, if you have lost someone from suicide, if you have lost someone from mental health or depression, put their name in the chat box right now via Zoom or Facebook. And let's just take a moment of silence as the folks online put the name of a loved one that died by suicide in the chat box. And I'd like to look, because there's power, there's collective power in putting that name out there and honoring that person's memory, honoring that person's legacy, just like the Harris family did in her honor, in Jordan's honor. So I'm going to go to the chat box right here, and I see Deborah post, I see David Sale, Johnny Cox, Aaron, my nephew, Lawrence. They're coming in faster than I can read, folks. Pillow, Ricky, Tate Nelson, Andy, Lindsay, Steve Eppertson, Larry McNamee, Robert Thompson, my grandmother, Geneva Hester, Walter, Jim Foote, Robert Falvo, Braden, Mary Dempsey, Richard. Folks, this affects not more than, so we saw earlier in the poll that 61% of you on the call know someone who's died by suicide. And remember, the national average is 90%. 90% of people in this country know someone who's died by suicide. And folks, the statistics also show that people who die by suicide have told someone their plans before. So that's why it's so important to support programs like this foundation, like QPR training, to, as our speaker said, understanding the language of depression. So the real reason we're here today is Jordan Elizabeth Harris. You know, this is a young woman gone far too soon. But you know, I had a conversation with the Harris family yesterday, and they told me we don't want to make this all about Jordan. And I said, you know, everybody out there has their own Jordan. 90% of you know someone who died by suicide. So the goal today is honor the memory of Jordan and also honor the memory of all of you. The names are still coming in the chat box. Blake, Jim Boren, my Aunt Susan, cousins John and Ricky, Brenda Thurston, Faith, Lyle. This is real, folks. We need your support. We're more than halfway there to get to that $150,000. The program will end in just a few minutes, so please make that donation. It's so important. It is my honor now to introduce the co-founder of the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation, Ellen Harris.
Jordan Elizabeth Harris is my daughter, and I say her name every chance I get. I miss her every single day and the relationship that we had, but I'm not here today to talk about Jordan. Over the last 8 months, your life has certainly been impacted by the coronavirus one way or the other. The forced isolation and lifestyle changes we're all experiencing have created huge increases in the number of individuals dealing with anxiety and depression. As troubling, if not more so, is the significant increase in suicide attempts. According to the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, a nearly record number of children during the pandemic have been admitted to Cook Children's Medical Center after a suicide attempt. The Star-Telegram quotes Dr. Kia Carter, the medical director of psychiatry at Cook Children's, as saying that the hospital has recorded an extremely high number of adolescent suicide attempts over the past couple of months. The COVID-related stressors come as youth suicide was already at a record high before the pandemic, with increases every year since 2007. According to the most recent data available from the CDC, suicide is the second leading cause of death among people ages 10 to 24, as it has been for many years. The services of the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation are needed in our community now more than ever. You've learned about what we do throughout this program. We've brought Hope Squads to 89 schools across 9 different school districts. We partner with 16 local nonprofits, assisting them in offering suicide prevention trainings to their employees and clientele. And to date, we have funded $392,000 to suicide prevention and depression research. What hasn't been mentioned is that year to date, we have trained 4,012 gatekeepers in QPR, and since 2016, we have trained a total of 15,200 and 22 community members in suicide prevention. We can't do this work without your help. All the work the foundation does gets done with a small staff of 4 who are always mindful of how important it is to be good stewards of your many generous donations. Let me give you just a quick snapshot of what the foundation can do at 2 very different donation levels. A $50 donation can provide the resource cards, brochures, and materials for a single community outreach event. A $5,000 donation can support a New Hope Squad for their first 3 years. That same $5,000 donation can help us achieve our goal to be one of the leading funders of suicide prevention and depression research done here in North Texas. And here's an added incentive for those of you who are attending because you've been invited by one of our table captains. My husband Tom and I will donate an additional $100 for each table where all the guests make a donation, no matter the size. As we come to the end of this event, please be assured that any donation in any amount will help the foundation pursue our vision of a world where suicide is never the choice. To make a donation, you can text the word GIVE to 833-307-0773. Go to our website, www.jordanharrisfoundation.org/donate, or send in your check to the address on your screen. On behalf of the board and the staff of the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation, I thank you.
Hey GHS, I'm Macy.
I'm Morgan.
Hey GHS, I'm Kira.
I'm Mrs. Partridge.
Hey GHS, I'm Addie.
I'm Will.
I'm Dr. Nottingham.
I'm Ava.
I'm Allie.
Hey GHS, I'm Ifanaya.
I'm Marissa.
I'm Miss Stulin.
Hey GHS, I'm Kayla.
I'm Travis.
I'm Emma, and we are Hope Squad.
We want you to all know that we miss you.
We miss our teachers
and our friends
and walking the halls of our second home.
We know that some of you may be struggling right now,
and we want you to know that we feel you.
We hear you.
We see you.
And we are here for you.
And we are here for you.
And we are here for you.
We know it's hard to get motivated some days.
Or that you are worried about prom and graduation.
We know it's hard to miss out on sports, concerts, and competitions.
Teachers, we know that you're balancing working from home
and managing your own kids at the same time.
We know that social isolation can be challenging.
But try and stay positive.
This won't last forever.
Reach out to someone if you need to talk.
A teacher,
a friend,
a family member,
a counselor,
or a Hope Squad member.
Take care of yourself and know that there is hope.
There is hope.
There is hope.
Love GHS Hope Squad.
Love the GHS Hope Squad.
Love GHS Hope Squad.
Ellen, thank you so much. The strength that you and your husband Tom have shown have been absolutely inspiring. You know, turning a tragedy into a movement. This is Jordan's legacy, and this also is to honor any of you out there who have lost a loved one by suicide. Special thank you to Mary Newland and the Grapevine High School Hope Squad for creating that awesome video when COVID first hit. And I also want to thank our lunch committee co-chairs, Lisa Daughtry and Whitney Early. Thank you so much for your generous time. And folks, we just heard during the break, we received an anonymous gift of $50,000. So we are at $137,000. Please, if you're going to give, please give now. We can't do this great work without support of everyone in our village, everyone in our community. So please, please, please click on that donate button. Let's get to 150 and let's keep going to 250 like our keynote speaker said. So as we close this event, we invite you to stay on. Remember, we're going to do some QPR training on Zoom to learn what to do if someone tells you they're struggling with mental health, depression, or says that they are contemplating suicide. So we're going to post a donation link one more time in the chat box in the comments section on Facebook. Click now, you can make your donation. We want to thank all of our sponsors, elected officials, Terry Bentley Hill, the Harris family, the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation staff, the volunteers, table captains, Tom and Ellen, whose vision and mission keeps Jordan's spirit alive in all of us, her legacy today, and to all of you that may have lost someone. And folks, we're going to do something fun here at the end. We don't want to forget all the people behind the scenes that make us in the front look good. So we're going to try to do this pan shot here so you can see all the people behind the scenes that makes it happen. All the folks at Red Productions, there you can see them, including Scott and Amanda, Trey Sprinkle, Bill Alexi at the meeting squad. You can see them back in the control room right in front there. Folks, thank you so much for joining our 7th annual Bring the Conversation to Light program. Stick around. We'll start our QPR training in about 4 minutes, and a big thank you to everybody out there for giving your time for this amazing organization.
Everybody's reaching for the stars. No matter how far apart we are. When the world is up against you now, yeah, we're gonna make it through somehow. Everybody's reaching for the stars. We fly, ready to rise up in the air. We climb over the moon, we're getting there. So forget about tomorrow, it's gonna be alright. 'Cause you and I are only some hard times, so tell me, brother, can we make it through the dark? Let's try to be there for one another, though the road seems very far. When the world just falls apart, we are fearless, we are lightning, breaking through the dark. We are fearless, we keep shining, let love be the spark. Look for the clear skies, it's getting better. Just believe it in your heart. Let's try to hold on, it's now or never. We can make a brand new start. When the world just falls apart, we are fearless.
Hello, everyone. Oh my gosh, thank you all for sticking around to do this QPR suicide prevention training. I'm telling you, I am still all worked up from such an inspiring and beautiful program. Hearing from Terry Bentley Hill, hearing from Alicia, Ellen, Tom, our wonderful co-chair Susan Foster, Carlo, our MC. Can we all give him a round of applause? We're thrilled, and we're so excited that you stuck around to go through this life-saving training. So what we need to do first, we are going to do a pre-survey and we're going to do a post-survey. And the reason we do that is because we want to measure how after this hour your confidence and competence in suicide prevention training has gone. So in just a moment, I'm going to put up this QR code, or you can fill out this bit.ly. We've also posted it in the chat. If everybody will take just a moment to click on that link in the chat, or use your phone and use this QR code, we're going to give you just a couple of minutes to take that pre-survey. It's just 9 questions. You can do it really quickly. And as we're waiting for people to do that, if you'll just tell me in the chat box, we're going to be interactive while we do this, and we're going to be using the chat box. I've got my sidekick Carlo over here helping me here. I've got Trey over here helping me here. I've got Amanda and Red Productions helping me out there. So it's a team effort to bring you this QPR today. So has everybody had a chance to do this pre-survey? Give me a thumbs up. Hey, do y'all know how to use reactions in Zoom? Give me a thumbs up. Can I see you if you've done that survey? And I'm just looking at the gallery view. I see you. Yes, wonderful. Wonderful, good. All right, well, let's get started. So the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation, again, we're going to talk more about Jordan. Jordan was one of those young women who you never would have thought was struggling with her mental health. She was the valedictorian at Richland High School in Birdville ISD. She was a student athlete, a National Merit Scholar, got that scholarship to the University of Michigan. And it was when she was in her senior year, she started to struggle with her mental health, was diagnosed with severe depression, and then only 4 months later took her life. So Tom and Ellen Harris, her mom and dad, who you met earlier today, started the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation with the mission in mind to eradicate suicide by funding depression research, creating awareness through education, erasing the stigma, and providing hope to those who are struggling in silence. And we really envision a world where suicide is never the choice. With that mission and vision in mind, we have several programs we do at the foundation. One of those things was we provide much needed dollars for depression research funding. We do QPR programs all over the state. Virtually, we've been all over the world almost now with our virtual QPR. Hope Squad is our peer-to-peer suicide prevention program in our schools. We know that 7 out of 10 kids will tell a friend before they attempt suicide, but that friend won't tell an adult. So that's why that peer connection is so important. on a school campus. We also have Beyond the Cube, which is suicide prevention in the workplace. You know, sometimes our coworkers are like family, right? It's my work husband, it's my work best friend, and we know that they are perfectly positioned to know if we could be struggling with our mental health. So if you own a business, we'd love to come do QPR training for your group. Let's talk about QPR. That's a chance where we can get together, eat some yummy, yummy tacos, fellowship together, and then tackle the hard subject of suicide prevention. And then Unite for Light is our community partnerships. So for example, we have partnered with Meals on Wheels. They have trained all their volunteers in QPR, the volunteers that are going into the homes of the elderly and the homebound, to recognize the warning signs of suicide. And without our community partners, we could not bring this conversation to light the way we do. So thank you so much for those of you who are on the program who are our Unite for Light partners. But today we're here to do QPR. QPR, question, persuade, refer. Q stands for question, P stands for persuade, and R stands for refer. So let's watch a little video to get us started.
Research shows that the odds of surviving a heart attack in a public place are 10 times greater in regions where thousands of ordinary citizens are trained in CPR. It's called bystander rescue. When someone shows signs of experiencing cardiac arrest, the response of nearby friends, family, or coworkers is critical. The effective use of CPR doubles or triples one's chances of surviving a heart attack. Like CPR, QPR is an emergency intervention for someone experiencing a life-threatening crisis. QPR is easy to learn and easy to remember, but it takes courage to overcome our fears about reaching out to help someone who may be considering suicide. Research also shows that where QPR is widely taught, suicide attempts and deaths decrease. Just like CPR, QPR requires quick, bold, and informed action. Because suicide, like heart attacks, remains a rare event, we must train hundreds to save one, thousands to save hundreds, and millions to save thousands. There is an old Welsh saying, "No great misery goes unspoken." When we have a toothache, we tell people. We don't hide our pain. But because of the stigma and taboo around the word suicide, many people considering suicide don't speak plainly about their suffering. They fear our rejection. They fear that if they say something, we will ridicule them or make fun of them. As a result, people thinking about suicide often use indirect language. They hint at what they're thinking of doing. They send us coded messages, and they suffer in silence. Called suicide warning signs, QPR training teaches you how to recognize these warning signs, quickly decode them, and then question the person in an informed and compassionate manner to learn if they are considering suicide. Just as talking about physical pain helps diminish it, talking about suicide with someone willing and able to listen reduces psychological pain almost immediately. Trained QPR gatekeepers are merchants of hope, and hope helps prevent suicide. Millions of people have now been trained in QPR. Rigorous independent research studies support QPR as effective, and thousands of personal stories assure us that QPR is saving lives. When you use QPR, not everyone will be suicidal. Some people are simply stressed to the breaking point, but they still need help. Help you can give. Please note that you cannot put the idea of suicide into someone's mind. People are either thinking about suicide or they're not. The fear of putting the idea of suicide into someone's head is a myth that keeps us from acting when we should do just the opposite. QPR is a universal intervention for people in pain, whether they're thinking about suicide or not. While it takes a special courage to overcome our fears, we will teach you how to ask about suicide and to offer hope through listening. Listening is the power tool that restores hope in the hopeless. We know you can do this, and we will show you how. Preventing suicide. It's what people do.
It's what people do. It's what you're going to learn how to do today. So in the next 45 minutes, you will be a QPR gatekeeper. You will know the 3 tools to save a life from suicide. So with that said, before we get started, I always like to acknowledge that I know how hard it is to talk about suicide. From the poll earlier today, for those that were watching, 61% of you have lost someone to suicide. Or maybe you know someone who's currently struggling with their mental health, or you could be struggling with your mental health. So please just know, as we go through this, please be kind and gentle with yourself. And know that we're learning something new. And we may need to take a deep breath, put our hand on our heart and our belly and take a deep breath. So Maya Angelou has one of my favorite quotes. She says, "When you know better, you do better." And that's what we're going to learn today. So a lot of times people will think, oh gosh, I would have said this. I wish I would have done that. I wish I wouldn't have done this or that. There's no woulda, coulda, shoulda. We're starting from zero today, and we're going to learn QPR. All right? So with that said, let's go over some training goals that we have for QPR. So if someone you knew was showing signs of suicide, you would directly raise the question with them. If a person's words or behavior suggest the possibility of suicide, you would ask that person directly, are you thinking of ending your life? Have you been thinking of death or dying lately? Okay, that's how direct we're going to learn how to be. What if someone told you they were thinking of suicide, you would intervene? So we want you to get involved. We want you to say something. We want you to hashtag stop minding your own business, right? We want to say something. You believe suicide is preventable. We know that suicide is the most preventable kind of death, and almost any positive action can save a life. Okay? And then we want you to feel confident and competent in your ability to help somebody who may be at risk for suicide. So those training goals in mind, let's talk about some of the statistics. We're not going to go over all of these, but there's a few I want to point out. First off, we lose 132 people every day by suicide. Suicide nationally is the 10th leading cause of death. But what we know for our youth, suicide is the 2nd leading cause of death for ages 10 to 17. Okay? So we also want to note that we know men die by suicide 3.5 times more often than women, but women are 1.5 times more likely to attempt. So I want to take this moment in the chat box. Tell us in the chat box. Tell me, why do you think men complete suicide more often than women? And I'm going to give you a few minutes over here to tell me in the chat box, what do you think? And I'm able to see your responses over here. So tell me, why do men complete suicide? Methods, that's right. More men have firearms, more lethal ways. You're exactly right. Thank you, guys. Men use more lethal means, which brings us to an important conversation around firearms. So what we know is that if someone has access to something as deadly as a firearm, we know that that suicide attempt can become more deadly. So what we know about suicide is that sometimes a crisis is only 10 minutes long. It's called an acute suicidal crisis. And so what we want to do, if we know someone we love, whether it's our kiddo or our cousin or our husband or anyone, if we know that they're struggling with their mental health, we want to think about what they may have access to at home. And if we can reduce that access to lethal means, we can immediately make their environment a safer place to keep them safe, right? So back to that acute suicidal crisis, what we want to do is put time between the thought, I want to kill myself, and the attempt. So, maybe grandmom and granddad can keep the firearm for a couple of weeks. Maybe we can remove the bolt, or maybe we can keep the ammunition separate from the firearm. Right? Those are all things we're doing to put time, okay? But let's not just talk about firearms. Let's talk about prescription drugs too, and even over-the-counter drugs. Right here in our own community, we've talked to so many Cook Children's pediatricians. Most of their suicide attempts for that 6 to 14 age range, it is ibuprofen, Benadryl, and Tylenol. And why do y'all think that is? Tell me in the chat box. Why is that? Yeah, and it's what I know. That's what they have access to, right? So if we know someone's struggling, we want to keep all lethal means out of hands, right? Okay, so now I'm going to move on to Texas. In Texas, a person dies by suicide every 2 hours, and there are twice as many suicides as homicides. There are twice as many suicides as deaths in alcohol-related motor vehicle accidents. Okay, but what do we hear about on the news all the time? Homicides, accidents, right? For our veterans and first responders, we know that they're 3 times more likely to die by suicide. Okay, so what we need to know is we've got to start having this conversation around mental health. In Texas, we rank number 38. So out of 50 states, we're number 38. Now, this is, again, I want you to tell me in the chat box, what states do you think have the highest rates of suicide? And I'm going to give you a chance to put it in the chat box. What states do you think have the highest rates of suicide? And I'm taking a look now. California, New York, Washington, Montana, good. Great, keep Cali, Mississippi. Okay, all great guesses. Thank y'all for engaging with me on the chat. Yeah, but look what it is. It is Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, Alaska. So what's going on in those states? What do you notice? What's happening? Y'all have any thoughts? What makes those states different? And when I'm doing this training, a lot of people do guess Florida, California, New York, right? I'll tell you that I lived in New York City for 2 years. And, you couldn't get in the subway without being real crowded and touching somebody, right? So we think that it's real stressful. But what's going on in these states that are colored in red? And what we see, isolation. You're exactly right. Yes, thank you. And then Christopher says access to services. That is the other main factor. So there's 2 main things. We want to think about isolation. We know that suicide rates are higher in rural populations, right? And then we want to think about lack of resources. Okay, so we know we've got great resources here in Tarrant County, but it's still not enough. So think of counties, rural counties around us. Do you think they have as many mental health resources as we may have? And let me ask you about school districts. Are there some school districts that have more mental health resources than others? Right? So it's all about making sure we are ensuring that connectedness, right? And then if we know someone may be struggling, we get them access to the care that they need, right? All right, so now let's talk about Tarrant County. I know some of you are joining me outside of this area, but I want to point out there's been a 30% increase in suicide nationwide since 1999. But right here in Tarrant County, that same 20 years, there has been a 55% increase right here at home. So why is that? What kind of community, what kind of culture are we creating around mental health? Now, I was born and raised here in Fort Worth, Texas. I went to Castleberry High School. Shout out, go Lions, right? And so I have so much pride in my community. But my dad was a Fort Worth PD. I've got 3 older brothers. I'm the youngest. I'm the only girl. There was no crying in baseball. And if I fell down, I was going to pull my britches up, slap some dirt on it and move on, right? And that's wonderful to teach resilience, but sometimes we've got to have that courage and bravery to step into an emotional or a mental health conversation. And that's what we're going to learn how to do today too. So here's what worries us the most though, is that our students right here in our area, every 2 years, they do what's called a Texas Youth Risk Behavior Survey. And last time they did that survey, out of 146,000 Tarrant County 14 to 18-year-olds, 51,000 reported being sad and hopeless. Almost 26,000 considered suicide and almost 18,000 attempted. And we know that this is pre-COVID. We know that these numbers are even higher now, right? I know that last month, Cooks saw 37 kiddos who had attempted suicide, Okay, so we've got to start having this conversation. I'm with you. I'm a parent. I've got a 4th grader. She's lovely and 10 years old in Fort Worth ISD, and I hate that I have to talk to my 10-year-old about suicide. But I know she's talking about it or she's hearing about it. And they may not call it suicide, but is the stress and these feelings that they don't know what to do with, is it so overwhelming that they're bottling that up? So that's why we have programs like the Hope Squad. That's why we want to do QPR for as many people as we can, because we want to know it's okay to not be okay. And then most importantly, we want to help get that person connected to help, right? So QPR is not intended to be a form of counseling or treatment. None of us at the end of this next 33 minutes are going to be counselors or mental health professionals. But QPR is intended to offer hope through positive action. To offer hope, that's what we want to do, right? We're not going around looking for problems or being nosy or gossipy, but if we see something on social media, if we hear something at work, if we hear something in the band hall, if you're thinking about your kids or in the locker room, we want to know that we can have that conversation, and QPR teaches you how to do that. So let's talk about some myths and facts that are wrapped up around suicide. So the first myth is no one can stop a suicide, it's inevitable. Is that true? No. We know that suicide is the most preventable kind of death, and almost any positive action can save a life. Earlier in the program, you heard Terry Bentley Hill. She was telling the story of her friend, and her friend was Kevin Hines. So I'm looking in the gallery. Have any of you ever heard that story of Kevin Hines? And she told it so beautifully during the program. You know, he had made the decision to end his life, got on the bus to go to the bridge. Not one person said anything. He's visibly upset. He gets to the bridge and says, okay, I'm going to walk across, and if someone will just smile at me, I won't do it. And he jumped. So what we know and what that tells us is that, do you think people want to die? Do you think people want to die? And the answer is no. No, they just want what? They just want what? They want the pain to end, okay? So if we can step in that moment, be that friendly face, not get in the trench with them, but be that helping hand to say, I care about you, I'm listening, you are heard. We can help take that hot moment to a cool moment, right? And we know that almost any positive action can save a life. So a high five. So now we're not doing high fives, we're doing elbow bumps, or we're doing virtual hugs, or, whatever we're doing. Telling someone, moms who were on this call, have you ever been in the Target and you saw a mommy and her kid was just spun out? Okay? So we can either be like, oh, gross, or we can say, you got this, I've been there. That's the sort of positive action that can totally change the trajectory of somebody's day. So we know suicide is preventable. What about only experts can prevent suicide? I don't know who an expert is, right? Every suicide is different, and we know that it's complex. Humans are complex. But we know that suicide prevention is everyone's business, and we can all prevent the tragedy of suicide. And then this one is huge, okay? Confronting a person about suicide will only make them angry and increase the risk. And I'll tell you guys, before I started doing this work, I felt this way. I was like, well, I'm not going to say anything because they're going to get mad at me, or I'm going to make it worse. I'm going to put the idea into their head. I had all these fears, right? But the main one was they're going to get mad at me. But I want to prove this to you. I want everybody to take a minute and close your eyes. And I want you to think about the last time you had a horrible, no good, ugly, gross, bad day. When was the last time you had a horrible, bad day? Okay, I can name you 5 right now, right? Okay, and so think about that. So whatever happened, your boss was driving you nuts, COVID was driving you nuts, my 10-year-old was driving me crazy. Whatever it is, when you could just spin out with a best friend, and I see several of my friends are on this call right now. If I could call Debbie or Natty or Sage or Kelly or my cousin Holly, and just be like, how do I feel after I'm done venting? You feel better, right? After you can completely spin out with somebody, you feel better because you get it off of your chest, right? And so here's what I want you to know. This is important. The only way we can research suicide is to talk to people who have attempted but not completed. And so what we know overwhelmingly is that they just need to be able to talk and be heard in a safe, judgment-free place. They need to be heard. So again, just remember this, and even when I'm doing QPR for Hope Squad members, sometimes they'll say, well, my friend's going to get mad at me and they don't want anybody to know. I'll say, okay, so they don't want anyone to know, right? But they told you. So if they told you, do you think they don't want anyone to know? And you kind of see this light bulb go off in their head and they're like, oh, okay, right. So we do know that we're going to learn more about the warning signs of suicide, but some of these coded messages, some people say things to see if you're hearing. Are you listening? Do you hear me? Right? So again, what we're teaching too, as a side note in our Hope Squad program, is that we can't keep a deadly secret, right? And what we need to think about is, would we rather lose a friendship or a friend? But what we know 100% of the time is that kiddo that said something or told their friend, that is a cry for help. And they are so glad they got connected to that trusted adult, right? So moving on, what about talking or asking about suicide will put the idea into their head? Y'all, it doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. People are either thinking about suicide or they're not. So I want to take a moment with you to share my story. I started struggling with my mental health when I was in the 7th grade. Now, I didn't know that, and tell me in the chat box, what do we say about middle schoolers when they're all over the place? What do we say? I want some of you parents and teachers and advisors, what do we say? What do we say? Hormones, yes, what else? What else do we say? Y'all, I know we say more than hormones about 7th graders. Right? Middle school is the toughest time. You're so right. Yes. A phase. You'll grow out of it. You're dramatic. Are you saying I'm dramatic? No. Puppy love. All those things. But here's the deal. What did my teachers and my parents never do? They never asked me. They never asked me. So if you only learn one thing in this training, it's that you never know unless you ask. And so many times I'll get questions from parents and teachers, and they'll say, well, maybe they're just looking for attention, or it is just a phase. How do I know if my kid is really struggling with suicide? You ask. You ask. Okay? So I started struggling with my mental health in the 7th grade. I contemplated suicide when I was in college. So when I was in Jordan's age, I was a senior in college. And I didn't go and get help until I was 27. I remember finally going to the doctor and being like, I get really mad at red lights, and I just don't think that's normal, right? So I finally had the courage to go talk to someone. Now I'm 40. And I will tell you, I'm so glad I did that because I got on a treatment plan that works for me. I'm on an antidepressant called citalopram, and I also do therapy. That's a combination that works for me. And it may not be the combination that works for you or your kiddo or whoever may be struggling, but we want to take the steps to start figuring out, how can I feel better? Okay, so I just want to say, no one put that idea into my head. I had never thought about suicide before, and I've not thought about suicide since. But I'll tell you, on that dark day when I was a senior, I was sitting on my dorm room bed. It was dark. It was dark. So I just want you to know, please don't be afraid that you will put the idea into their head. What about suicidal people keep their plans to themselves? Not usually. Not usually. Now, sometimes we know that there are no warning signs, but then in hindsight, we start to say, oh, okay. But sometimes we know there's no signs, but most suicidal people communicate their intent a week prior, okay? And I told you earlier, 7 out of 10 kids will tell a friend, but that friend won't tell a trusted adult, right? So we know that a lot of people communicate their intent, and then finally, those who talk about suicide don't do it. What do they want? What do they want? Tell me in the chat box. What do they want? I'm looking at the chat box. This is me looking. What do they want? Attention. Attention. Give it to them. Give it to them. What is attention but connectedness and love, right? And if you've got someone who's thinking about suicide and they're trying to get your attention, give it to them. If they are using it, maybe they're not thinking about suicide, but they are using it as an attention-getting mechanism, don't you think there's probably something else going on? So what do we need to do? We need to have a conversation. We need to bring the conversation to light. We need to ask the question, right? And we need to stick around for that. So know that people who talk about suicide may try or even complete an act of self-destruction. Okay? So we've covered some of the myths and facts around suicide. Now let's talk about what are some warning signs. What are some warning signs of suicide? So it's when what you hear, see, and know come together. The more signs and clues you see, the higher the risk, and we want to take all signs seriously. So it's almost like in our brain we're making 3 columns, right? Okay, I heard them say this, they're acting this way, and that's just not like them, and I know this is going on in their life. So let's start with what you may hear. I've decided to kill myself. I wish I were dead. I'm going to commit suicide. I'm going to end it all. If such and such doesn't happen, I'll kill myself, right? So those are all pretty direct. If we hear that, our red flag goes up, right? But what if it's indirect? And this is what we see a lot of the times. I'm tired of life. I just can't go on. Okay? My family would be better off without me. This is huge, guys. Anytime you hear anyone talking about being a burden to others, that perceived burdensomeness, that's a huge indication that they might be thinking about suicide. Okay? Who cares if I'm dead anyway? I just want out. I won't be around much longer. Or what if someone makes a joke about it? Or they make light of it. Oh, well, pretty soon you're not going to have to worry about me. I'm going to a better place. Oh, well, where are you going? Right? And how many times, and for those of you who know me, how many times do I use humor to cover up the mask? Again, I deal with depression and anxiety, and sometimes I go real deep down into it, and I'm not answering my phone, I'm not doing anything, and sometimes I'll use my humor. It's like, oh, I'm okay, woo, it's me, Christy, right? But how many times do we use a mask to cover up how we're feeling or use humor? Right? If someone does make a joke about suicide, we know that, talk about middle schoolers and even teenagers, we know that sometimes they use that as a joke a lot. So it really gives us the opportunity to talk about the language of suicide too. So one thing that you haven't heard me say, except because it was on a slide, is what? What do we sometimes hear? Someone whatted suicide. If y'all have any guesses in the chat? Someone whatted suicide. Starts with a C. Someone committed suicide. But tell me, what does committed sound like? Committed. Committed sounds like a crime, right? It sounds like a crime. Yeah, thank you guys. A crime. That's right. Absolutely, yeah. And so how long are we going to criminalize mental health? We've got to stop doing that, right? So when somebody asks, mention something like this, we want to take all those signs seriously. And adults, I want you to think about your Facebook feed recently. So many often we're talking about kiddos when it comes to youth suicide, but think about your cousin or that high school friend that you haven't talked to in years, but you saw them post, I'm tired, I don't know what else I'm going to do. That's a chance for us to go into their messages and say, hey, I saw that post, are you okay? I'm here if you want to talk. Okay, so I want adults to think about this too. And then what about what we may see? What about behavior cues? So isolation, huge. Irritability, okay? I told you I was like, traffic, 35, road rage. Like I was super upset, right? Reckless behavior, feeling hopeless about the future, increased drug and alcohol abuse. Okay, what are we doing if we have increased drug or alcohol abuse? We're self-medicating, right? We're hurting and we need to feel it, or we don't want to feel it, so we medicate. And then particular to suicide, visiting or calling people to say goodbye. Kind of conversations that make you go, what? Where are you going? What's happening? Or maybe giving away prized possessions. Giving away prized possessions. So I know I had a young lady, she gave her guitar to her younger sister. I had one young man, he gave his Apple Watch to a friend. And we also did, we came out to a construction firm and did QPR for a construction firm. Side note, after first responder and veteran suicide, construction workers have the highest rates of suicide. But we went out and did that QPR for those construction workers, and they had just lost a friend. And what we found out later is that 2 weeks prior, so he'd had given away his toolbox. But when he gave away his toolbox, what did nobody do? Nobody was like, oh, hey, what did we do? We just assumed. Oh, well, maybe he's getting a new toolbox, or he's going to a different company, or whatever. We make all these assumptions, but you never know unless you ask, okay? So this isn't, all of the behaviors that they may see, but when it comes to suicide, it's when it's prolonged, and it's just not like that person, right? We know when our friends or family are not acting like themselves. And then we have what we may know is going on. So this could be life factors. Now, as you look at this list, is this an exhaustive list of all the horrible, no good things that could happen? No. Is any one of these the reason someone decides to end their life? No. And I think it was Terry, too, who talked about we want to figure out why. We want to place blame. But again, suicide is complex. Humans are complex. We know that 90% of people who die by suicide do have a diagnosable mental health issue, okay? But something could be that straw that breaks the camel's back, right? So if you heard them say this, if you see them acting this way, and you know any of this is going on, being expelled or fired, family problems, alienation, loss of any major relationship. And parents, this isn't just romantic relationships. Parents, this is friendships as well. So I told you a little bit about myself, and there is a history of mental illness in my family, and I've noticed some of this stuff start to creep up in my own daughter. And I'll tell you that she's now in the 4th grade, but she changed drastically in the 1st grade. And I found out later it was because at about halfway the mid-year mark, there was a group of friends that were her little girlfriends, and then all of a sudden they stopped playing with her. And they told her they didn't want her to be in her group. So a year later, actually a year and a half later, I found out that she had no friends. And it was because of that experience that she thought she wasn't worthy. So that's when she stopped raising her hand in class. That's when her grades started to suffer. So this is friendships too. And it can start young. Death of a friend or family member, especially if it's by suicide, we know that you're 9 times more likely to die by suicide if you've lost someone directly. Financial problems, a sudden loss of freedom, a fear of punishment, feeling embarrassed or humiliated, or a victim of assault or bullying. And we know since 2007, youth suicide has increased 60%. And why do you think that is? What happened in 2007? What happened in 2007? It's the smartphone and social media, right? 2006 was the first time you could get a phone that could do that, remember? And it was amazing. Okay? And then 2009 was the first time you could get a Facebook account without a college email address. Okay? So that 60% increase since 2007 is a direct correlation to what? I don't have my phone, but that thing, right? So again, we've got to be watching out. Even adults, we've got to watch this. So again, here are other risk factors: previous suicide attempts, relationship problems, access to harmful means. Also, our LGBTQIA youth. We know that they are 5 times more likely to attempt suicide than their heterosexual peers. But some protective factors. What are some things that can protect our loved ones? And maybe that is seeing a counselor or therapist. Maybe it's medication. Maybe it's difficult access to means. Maybe it's our pets. My cat, Ricky Bobby, he's my best friend, right? And I just pet him and love him. He doesn't want to be anywhere near me, but I do, right? Sobriety. And then the most important, a sense of hope. A sense of hope. And as QPR gatekeepers, we can provide that. So ask yourself, am I hearing, seeing, or know anything about this person that could possibly be a cause for concern about their safety? And if the answer is yes, proceed with QPR. So again, QPR sounds like what? Tell me in the chat box. QPR, and from that video, QPR sounds like? Yes, CPR, yes. So CPR is an emergency intervention for someone who's not breathing. QPR is an emergency intervention for someone who's at risk for suicide, okay? So that's how we know. If the answer is yes, proceed with QPR. So how do we do QPR? How do we do it? Well, first step is Q, question. Remember, it's okay if you're feeling nervous. This is not easy. And even if any of my Hope Squad advisors or mental health professionals are still on the call, even people who do this for a living and ask these questions every day, it never gets easier, right? So we know that it's hard. We know that it takes that bravery and courage. And know that the words used, they're not as important as just asking, okay? Just asking the question. So tips, if in doubt, don't wait. Be persistent. Be persistent. Okay? And that means that doesn't mean be annoying or anything like that. It just means, hey, I'm going to keep knocking. You have a teenage son? I'm going to keep knocking on the door every day and telling you I love you until, he may be ready to talk. Okay? If in doubt, don't wait. Ask the question. Don't wait until next Sunday at church. Don't wait until later on tonight after school. Don't wait until the next time you're in the car. Do it now. Do it now. If the person is reluctant, be persistent. This is hard to do, right? But also, if you're going to have one of these hard conversations, whenever somebody asks us, hey, how are you doing today? What's the first thing that we say? Fine, good, yes, woo, right? So there's a national campaign for mental health awareness. It's called #AskTwice. And the whole thing is, if you ask twice, you might get a more realistic answer. So it's like, well, I saw you spill your coffee out in the parking lot, and then you came in and slammed your Lean Cuisine into the fridge, and I know you're going through a divorce, and you haven't been doing our Zoom happy hours lately, and we're just worried about you. And I saw that post last night about not knowing what to do and being at the end of your rope. Are you thinking of suicide? Or have you been thinking of death or dying lately? Okay, that's how we ask. And if we can come at it that way, not going to get mad, right? So ask twice. Talk to them alone in a private setting. Allow the person to talk freely. Guys, this is not about giving advice. And women, I will tell on myself, and it's not just women. So, but if I've got a friend who has a problem, we're going to fix it, right? By the end of this glass of wine, glass of wine, we're going to solve the world's problems, right? We're going to solve the world's problems. But if it comes to suicide, okay, we can't fix it. That's a little bit beyond what we can do, but we can be that friend. We can be that listener. We can let that person know we love them. And we can let that person know that we're going to find the right resource to get them the help that they need, okay? Give yourself plenty of time and have your resources handy. We're going to do some housekeeping at the end of this QPR training so we make sure that you get all the resources that you need, okay? And then we say, when people are as upset as you seem to be, they sometimes think about suicide. And I'm just wondering if you're feeling the same way, okay? Or maybe indirect. Have you been unhappy lately? Have you been so unhappy you thought about ending your life? Okay, and for younger kiddos, again, that's 6 to 10, they may not know the word suicide, but have they said, I just want to go to sleep and never wake up, Mommy? Or I want to go to heaven with Sonny, and there's free Chick-fil-A and I don't have to do homework or chores. Okay? I hope there's free Chick-fil-A in heaven. But what do I need to do? I need to ask, well, what does going to heaven mean? What does dying mean? What does being dead mean? Okay? So again, we want to ask.
Hey, Christy, you just got a comment, a
Sure.
very powerful comment from Gwen in the chat. She
Sure.
said, I talked someone down in a coffee shop. We were strangers and now we are friends. It was crazy. I had heard this at last year's JEH Foundation meeting. She's thrilled with the training.
Great, Gwen, thank you. Yes, and it's one of those things, once you learn QPR, you can't not do it, right? Because we can all change the trajectory. Now, if someone's thinking about suicide, and we're able to take that one hot moment to a cool moment, does that mean they won't have another hot moment next week or next year or in 3 years or later on tonight? No, but we're there to help keep that person safe for now and provide that hope now, right? Thank you for that, Carlo. How not to ask. You're not suicidal, are you? You wouldn't think of doing anything stupid or crazy, right? Or you're not thinking about killing yourself, are you? Or my favorite is are you kidding me? You have got 3 kids, 3 mouths to feed. How dare you be so selfish to think about something like suicide? Right? That's hurtful. A lot of people will say suicide is selfish, but what we know, again, the only way we can research suicide is to talk to people who have attempted but not completed. They are the last people they are thinking about. I thought about suicide. I was in pain, and I was like, oh, Christy, this would just be over if you were dead. And it scared me, right? So just remember, you don't, if you come at them this way and you're also telling them, oh, please don't tell me that you're going to do this. But as QPR gatekeepers, which we're going to be in 7 minutes, okay? As QPR gatekeepers, we are going to take a deep breath, okay? We're going to summarize to the person what they've said or done that makes us worry. And then we're going to ask the question in a caring and supportive way. So that's Q, question. Now let's move on to persuade. How do I persuade someone to stay alive? Well, it's by persuading them to get help. Remember, suicide is not the problem. It's a perceived solution to a perceived unsolvable problem. And remember, if given the chance to talk, most people with thoughts of suicide will talk themselves out of it. Just by having that opportunity to talk and vent and be validated, right? That can help. But the most important, so how do we persuade someone to get help? This is the key. Your willingness to listen and help. That's what rekindles hope, and it makes all the difference. Makes all the difference, right? So don't be judgmental. Listen to their concern, okay? Give them your full attention. No cell phones. You're not doing anything, but right there with your friend, with your loved one, with your child. Express your concern. Hey, I want you to live. This is serious, and I'm really worried about you, okay? Or offer hope. Hey, I'm on your side. We're going to get through this together. But the most powerful thing you can do is ask, will you go with me to get some help? Do you trust me to find some help? And will you let me help you get help? That's what we're doing. We're going to get help. And so then we refer to our resources. So remember, suicidal people, they often feel like they can't be helped. When I'm in that place, when I was in that place, you're the only one that's ever been through a breakup or a divorce. You're the only one that doesn't know how you're going to pay for childcare and work from home. You're the only one that's ever been through some of these really tough things, right? So remember that, suicidal people often believe they can't be helped. You may have to do more than give referral information. The best referral involves taking that person directly to someone who can help, okay? And if they refuse, you may need to get others involved. So while you are doing QPR, you're asking open-ended questions. When was the last time you thought about that? Have you had a chance to tell anybody? Have you talked to your husband? Or do your friends know that you feel this way? Whatever you're saying. And then you want to ask, do you have a plan? Have you thought about how you might end your life? And then if they have a plan, so they've said yes, they have a plan, and then you say, well, have you thought about when? And if they have a timeline, that is a high-risk situation. We need to stay with that person until they can get help. And know that you can always call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline and stay with them while they're on the phone. Okay? So again, from the video you heard, a lot of people that you do QPR on, it sounds technical, right? They could just be stressed to the breaking point. Not everybody is thinking about suicide, but you only know if you ask those open-ended questions, right? So what we know, here's what I like to say at the end of the training. Out of 100 people, out of 100 people in your life, 97 just need a friend. 97 just need a friend. 2 may need that referral to a counselor or mental health professional, and 1 is that emergency situation. So know that this is more about being a friend, having some tough conversations, but knowing it's okay to not be okay, right? So here is some community resources that we have. We do want to send you these community resources. We also want to send you a QPR booklet that will reinforce everything that we've done in this training. A lot of people ask if they can have the slides. Unfortunately, we're not able to do that. But we do want to mail you that QPR booklet with this resource card. But I just want to mention some of these. The Trevor Lifeline is for our LGBTQIA youth. These top 4 are partners right here in our community. MHMR, they are, a lot of people don't know they have a mobile crisis unit. So you can call them, you get assigned an acuity, and they may have a mobile crisis team come right out or do a wellness check. And then crisis text line. It's my favorite. Y'all, 741-741. I give out the crisis line, text line almost every single day. I give it to adults, I give it to friends, I give it to family members, I give it to kids, okay? So you can text, okay? I've used this before when I've had those mommy days where I've had it up to here and it's like midnight and I have nobody else. I'm like, oh, I gotta talk to somebody. I've used it before, all right? So it's a great resource. And then finally, I wanna mention the LOST team of Tarrant County. They are a wonderful group of suicide survivors, which means they have all lost someone to suicide, and they volunteer with the LOST team. And so whether you lost someone 2 weeks ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, they live in California, whatever, they're here right here in Tarrant County to help you with grief counseling and support groups and anything you may need, but they can also help in a time of crisis as well. So, with that said, remember, since almost all efforts to persuade someone to live instead of attempt suicide will be met with agreement and relief, don't hesitate to get involved or take the lead. Since almost all efforts to persuade someone to live instead of attempt suicide will be met with agreement and relief, don't hesitate to get involved or take the lead. All right, guys, with that said, you did it. You're gatekeepers. Yay! Yay, yay, yay. So I want you to stick around. There's some housekeeping we need to do. And then I will stay and just for a few minutes or so and answer any questions you may have. But what I want to do now is Rachel, Bill, Carlo, let's go ahead and put that post survey in the link. So you did the pre-survey before. Now we want you to do the post survey. It's the same 9 questions. And what we want to see is, has your confidence and competence in helping someone at risk for suicide, has it changed in the past hour? Okay, that's what we're measuring. It says, how did you hear about us? You can put that you attended the Bring the Conversation to Light luncheon. And Rachel, I know you can hear us, but before we step off, Rachel, will you get me a fundraising update? Because I would love to see what we have done now at the end of this QPR. But also we need to put in that Google link because we want to mail you that QPR booklet and we also want to give you that resource card. Okay, we want to mail that to you. So we need your address so we can do that. Please fill out that Google form so we can do that. So Google form is in the chat box. And then, yeah, so I've got my handy dandy Inspector Gadget watch here, and Rachel, I'm hoping, will send me our updated numbers here in a second. But if you have done that post survey, if you filled out the QPR Google form, you're welcome to leave the meeting. Know that Rachel and I and the team will be the last ones on the call. We're going to wait for everybody to log off because we want to make sure that you're safe, okay? If you need any support, Rachel, you can put my phone and my email in the chat box. If you're interested in learning more about the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation, if you're interested in bringing QPR to your group, we'd love to talk to you. That's why we raised money today, so then I can come and we can do QPR for your group, right? That's why we're raising money, is because I think Ellen talked about it in her statement, is we have trained since 2016. We've trained 15,222 gatekeepers. Almost over 15,000 people in our community know the warning signs can save a life from suicide, and we want to continue this education piece. So are there any questions in the chat box that I can answer? Okay. How's everybody feeling? Give yourself a big hug, take a deep breath. Self-care is so important, everybody. If you've been on this call now since 11:30, we've been talking about some really heavy subjects. So commit to something to do for yourself tonight, whether it's take a bath or read a book or pet Riggy Bobby or eat tacos, whatever it is, everybody in your mind's eye, take a moment. How are you going to take care of yourself tonight? And with that said, did everybody have a chance to do that Google form and the post survey? Okay, I'm going to just check. Y'all, oh my gosh. Carlo, come get in frame. Okay.
Okay, let's see here.
Okay, y'all ready? Okay. $199,282.
We did it!
Yes! Woo! Yo! Oh, you just don't know. Oh my gosh, we're
That's
thrilled.
so
Trey,
great.
come get in the shot.
Come on, Trey.
Everybody get in the shot.
These are all
Y'all,
the behind the scenes
yes.
folks. They work tirelessly. Amanda, Scott, come on, guys.
Yeah,
everybody out here. Come on, guys.
Yay!
You can see the real talent behind who makes
Yeah.
everything look good and everything function smoothly. Thank you,
Yes.
guys. We can see them down there on the confidence monitor. Thank you guys for being here.
Like we're freaking out, and y'all have been so generous. Just thank you for everything. Thank you, Carlo. Thank you, team. We're here, again, the mission of the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation is to eradicate suicide by funding depression research, creating awareness through education, erasing the stigma, and providing hope to those who are struggling in silence. And all of you helped us do that today. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And I so look forward to hearing you or meeting you and just celebrating with you from this really great event. So thank you. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Everybody's reaching for the stars. No matter how far apart we are. When the world is up against you now, yeah, we're gonna make it through somehow. Everybody's reaching for the stars. We fly, ready to rise up in the air. We climb over the moon, we're getting there. So forget about tomorrow, it's gonna be alright. 'Cause you and I are only made of starlight. Starlight, light up my life. Starlight, make it alright. Starlight, shining so bright. Make it alright. Starlight. Everybody